To me, like there needed to be two separate plans for us. For example, you know that the first step in Alcoholics Anonymous is we admitted we were powerless over alcohol and that our lives had become unmanageable. Now that is a critical step for an alcoholic. But when I was sitting in one of those family meetings, reading that in unison together, you're kind of making a commitment that this is the path you're going to follow. That did not resonate with me. I was not an alcoholic. I didn't feel like my life was unmanageable. Or step number 5, we admitted to God ourselves and one other person the exact nature of our wrongs. Or step 8, we made a list of all people we had harmed, and we were willing to make amends to them all. Now, those are great principles. Would the world not be a better place if all of us followed the 12 steps of Alcoholics Anonymous? But that wasn't my pressing need. My pressing need was I wanted help in responding to and recovering from the trauma of my son's addiction. My second concern with these traditional meetings was their sharing format. If you have been to a traditional 12-step meeting, you know that the bulk of your time is spent in sharing groups. You are going to share your situation and other people are going to share theirs. And the format for a traditional group was that each person is given their opportunity to share, and they share until they feel that they have been heard. And when they are done sharing, sometimes they're thanked, and then the next person shares. And there is to be no interruption, no questions asked, no comments. And then if you do that, that is considered crosstalk, and that is highly discouraged. Some groups that you attend will allow some crosstalk after the meeting. You could say to the person, I heard you say this, can you clarify that? You could comment on it. But typically during the group, there is to be no crosstalk. Now, again, I think that might be a good way to manage a meeting for Alcoholics Anonymous or Narcotics Anonymous. Because think about this. Those people come in, sometimes they're new to recovery, sometimes they're in active addiction, they may have used right before the meeting. It's a peer-led support group, so there's no professional there to kind of keep the lid on things. Okay, it's just going to be a discussion. That could be a real powder keg, right? That could turn into chaos real quick. But again, I was not an addict. I felt I had the emotional maturity to benefit from a natural give and take of conversation. So the recovery plan for those groups didn't seem to work for me because it wasn't written for me as a family member. And I didn't feel like the sharing time was as productive as it could be for someone like myself. Fortunately, the story has a happy ending because after a few months, my church, that new church I was attending, they decided that it would be helpful to have a group for families who had been impacted by drugs or alcohol. And so I started a group at that time called Heart Cry, and it was specifically designed for families. And it still meets today. 12 years later, we are still meeting. And then a year ago, when our fan chapter thought about starting a family support group, I was all in because I saw how a support group had made a huge difference in my life. It had moved me from despair to hopefulness again. And I had saw how it worked in other people's lives as well. I want to make clear these are peer-led support groups. We make sure people understand we are not therapists, we are not counselors. We are not primary therapy. We encourage people who come to seek out therapy one-on-one. But that is not possible for everyone. We had a woman just come to our fan support group this week, and she said, I know I need therapy, but I don't have insurance to cover that. Sometimes people are just looking for a second layer of support. Sometimes people just want to be around others who have actually gone through the same experience. You might have a great counselor or therapist, but they might not have ever been through an experience like this one. They don't have an addicted loved one in their home. So there are many benefits that I see of offering a support group. First of all, support group can help return a sense of purpose to your life again. Many people I meet feel that if their loved one's life is being destroyed by drugs or alcohol, their own life must be destroyed as well. And that, of course, is not true. Or they feel they must put their own life on hold until their loved one enters recovery. And sadly, we know that does not always happen. You can discover that you're not alone in your experience. I was sitting in a group this year with 2 other women in my group that night, and one woman said that she had discussed the details of her daughter's memorial service with her daughter. She was feeling that her daughter may well die from an overdose, and so she thought, as a practical matter, she would like to know what her daughter wanted that service to look like. The other woman in the group said, my husband and I have gone ahead and purchased the cemetery plot. They just saw it as a very practical thing to do. Their daughter was having an addiction, and so they went ahead and did that. Now, this was surprising to me. I had thought about my son's memorial service. Would I say something about addiction? What would I say if it happened? But I didn't know anybody ever thought about those things besides me. That's not something I could tell my next door neighbor or my colleague at work. But to have a place where I could go and share that experience, that was really valuable. You can process your emotions in a non-judgmental setting. People say, I don't want to go to a place where I don't know these people, strangers telling my personal business. I think that's one of the advantages, right? That's the good thing. You're not going to see them at work the next day. It's kind of like talking to your beautician, right? You kind of spill your guts, but she's not going to see you again for a while anyway. You can benefit from the experience of other people. Say your son steals your credit card. Should you press charges against him? I don't want to ask my cousin that. I don't want to talk to my neighbor about that. But if I go to my support group, I can find several other people who have gone through that experience or something very similar. You can learn how to support your loved one in the best possible way. We want to point all of our loved ones towards recovery. But what is the best way to do that? For example, should I call in sick for my daughter at work so that she won't lose her job? Because if she loses her job, then she won't have any money, and it might depress her, and she'll go into addiction further. Well, you can discuss that with other people in your group. They can give you a perspective. They may have had the same experience. And finally, you can experience the satisfaction of helping other people. When you are in the midst of addiction like this, you think, what good could possibly come out of this? Is there anything good that could happen? Well, one of the things that can happen is you get stronger in your recovery. You can help other people with their recovery. One of the things I love to see after a meeting is people exchanging phone numbers or making plans to meet each other outside of the meeting, because then I know not only are they helping that other person, but they are beginning to heal themselves. Because by helping someone else, you begin to help to heal others. So, how do you start a support group like this? Well, I want to spend the bulk of our time talking about 4 main components that you'll need to consider if you want to start a support group. And I have also put together a manual. I brought one for each fan chapter. I just have one manual, but it's put together. Kind of tell you how we put together our meetings and how we run our support group. And you can also, if you email me, I will send you those materials online, and you can download those for your own use. And we'll pass those out at the end, and so then you can just kind of follow along with me and the PowerPoint today. So the 4 main components you need to think about if you want to start a group is you need a mission statement. You need a recovery plan. People are coming to you expecting help. You're going to have something to offer them. What should I do? My loved one's addicted. You need a plan to offer. And then how are you going to share that plan with them in your meeting? So you have this plan, but how are you going to communicate it during the meeting? How are you going to do that in a very practical way? And then finally, how do you want to set up these small group conversations where people have an opportunity to share? So the first thing you want to think about then is your mission statement. And I know it's very tempting to think, well, let's just skip over a mission statement. Do we really have to have one? It will help keep you focused on your goal, and it will keep you from making mistakes down the road. if you take a little bit of time to put a mission statement together. This is the mission statement that we wrote for our group, offering help, healing, and hope to families impacted by addiction. You are welcome to use our mission statement if you want to, but of course, your committee can sit down and write their own mission statement. The way we came up with this, we had a committee of probably about 8 people to start our support group. We brainstormed one day, how would we like this group to be of benefit to families who attend? And we wrote all these ideas down and we categorized them. One way was that we wanted to offer very practical help, sharing resources, information, and experiences. Second of all, we wanted to help people emotionally heal by giving them a place where they could air their concerns and they could listen to other people air their concerns. And then finally, we wanted to show them that there is still hope for their future. We cannot control our addicted loved one. We don't know if they will go into recovery. But we can still continue to lead a life that is full of hope. So that is our mission statement, but I want to show you now how you can apply it in a really practical way. Your mission statement is going to help you provide focus so that you don't get off into tangential activities. You're probably going to have a fairly small group, so you can't be everything to everyone. So where do you want to put your time and energy? For example, somebody comes into your meeting and they say, I've got a great idea. Let's organize a drive throughout the city. We'll collect coats and hats, and we'll give them to addicted homeless individuals. That is a very well-intentioned idea. But does it match your mission statement of providing help, healing, and hope to families? It's a little bit tangential, probably. It's more focused on the addict, and we need help for our addicted loved ones. But this group is focusing on the family. So I would probably pass on that idea. Also, it's going to help determine your meeting content. You're going to have some time at the beginning of your meeting, 10 or 15 minutes, where you're going to have a whole group discussion. What are you going to talk about? Well, should you talk about the effect of opioids on the brain? That sounds like good information. But does that support your mission statement of help, healing, and hope for families? Maybe not so much. We have a really strong fan chapter who offers fantastic monthly forums. That is a great topic for them. A better topic for us as family members might be, how do I forgive the harm that my addicted loved one has caused me? How do I continue to love my addicted loved one unconditionally? So we would look at a topic like that. A mission statement can encourage commitment to your group. So if a person's thinking, would I like to join that group? Do I want to really become involved in it? They know what you're about. And finally, we use that then as a tagline on all of our marketing materials. We always put on our mission statement. So now you have your mission statement in place, and now you need a recovery plan. You need a clear pathway for people to recovery because they're coming in expecting help. And if you don't have something to offer them, as they say in AA, nothing changes if nothing changes, right? So I have been working on my own recovery for about 2 or 3 years through my Heart Cry group. And after that time, I began to feel a little better. It was like a little sense of normalcy was returning to my life. Things weren't so chaotic anymore. And I started to think, well, you know, what has made the difference? What kinds of things have I learned? What emotions did I have to work through to make all of this happen? I sat down with a couple of other group members and we talked about that, and we really regretted that we had not had some kind of plan to follow, some kind of pathway. Because if we had had some help, we were pretty sure we could have come through it a little bit faster and with a little bit less pain. You still have to go through all of that, but it might not have been so difficult if we had just had some guidance along the way. So we brainstormed through the things we had learned, and from that, I eventually wrote the Parent Recovery Plan. You can use our recovery plan if you would like, of course, or you could write your own. I skipped a slide there, but if you're going to write your own, I would really it's written specifically for the addict. Don't take some materials, specifically for the family member. Don't take some materials written for the addict and try to contrive the meaning or change the wording a little bit. You really need your own plan, and I'll show you ours in just a minute. You need to have a clear path. Well, what do I do first? I guess that's my type A personality. But I want to know, what do I do first, and what should I do second? And so I have listed these steps in the order that I generally find family members to experience them. For example, usually the first thing that happens is, of course, they admit that their loved one has a substance abuse issue. And the second thing that happens to people, I find, is that they are overwhelmed by guilt and grief. And so I kind of put those steps in order that I usually see people experience them. Just like our addicted loved ones who follow 12-step programs, sometimes you think you have accomplished a step and then time goes on, things happen, you realize I need to go back and work on that step a little bit more. Or if your addicted loved one relapses, then you go back to step 1 again. I'm again admitting that my loved one has a problem with drug or alcohol abuse. But you can work through it a little faster. And then I remember when my son relapsed again, it was like, okay, I got step 1, step 2, step 3, a couple days in step 4. And within a few weeks, I really did feel like I had my feet underneath me again because I'd already done a lot of recovery work and I knew the pathway to get through all of this time. Also, if you have a plan, it can serve as a benchmark for your progress. It holds you accountable. Am I still stuck in the same place? Am I still have the same emotions and troubles and struggles that I did 6 months ago? That shouldn't be happening. You should be making progress in your own recovery. I had a woman who came to our support group meeting a couple weeks ago. She's very discouraged. She felt like she had really been a failure in managing the substance abuse use in her home. And she talked to me for a while and shared her story. And I said, hey, let's look at this recovery plan for a minute. We started going through. She had done a very good job on step 1, 2, 3. So first of all, that builds her confidence. I was really quite amazed, considering she had had no support. She'd done really quite well. But she got down to step number 6, which was restoring peace to your home. She said, that's it. That's where I'm stuck. She says, I either have to decide, can I make a peaceful home with this individual here? Maybe I can. Or am I going to have to ask them to leave my home? But she knew exactly where she was in that plan. And she went away, I think, quite satisfied. She knew what she needed to tackle next. And then, just like that woman, having that plan in place gives you a sense of accomplishment or control. There's almost, nothing we can control about our addicted loved one, but we can control this. We can control our own recovery. And so that makes us feel like we are accomplishing something. I should tell you that these steps originally were written for Heart Cry, which is a faith-based group, and so they were written with a spiritual framework in mind. The original steps were. And so there were references to God or higher power, just like in AA. I think there are at least 4 steps in there that reference spiritual things. But for use with the family and friends group that we have through FAN, I have removed those references. When I look at the steps, I do personally view them always from the spiritual framework. You'll notice that they are written from a parent's viewpoint because most all the work I have done have been with parents working with their children. And we've only recently had a couple of people come into our family and friends group who have come there because of a spouse. So we might have to think about changing some wording, but of course all the concepts still work. They are written in the first person. If you notice in traditional 12-step groups, those are always written in the third person. We admitted our child was abusing drugs and alcohol. We've changed it to I admit it because I just think it holds you more personally accountable when you're saying that. I admit these are the steps that I am taking. And then finally, they are written in the present tense, which is just a recent change I made. My younger son, who does not have addiction issues, he said to me, Mom, I've never understood why are the 12 steps written in the past tense? I thought you were working on this all the time. And I said, yeah, he's right. I am working on it all the time. And so I've changed them to the present tense. So these are our 12 steps that we follow in our group. Step 1 is I admit my child is abusing drugs or alcohol. They've come to your meeting. They are probably already at that point at least. Step 2, I grieve the loss of a healthy relationship with my child. and the expectations I have for my child's future. You usually experience just overwhelming grief. Grieving the loss of a person who is still living, the person that you knew once is gone, and there's somebody else new in their place. That's a big part of it. There are many things you need to grieve. I was talking to a woman recently in one of my groups. She is just having a terrible time with her own recovery, and I said to her, "Are you sure that you really grieved all of these losses?" She said, "Oh yeah, I'm sad." I said, "No, let's think about these. She has a daughter who in a couple of weeks should be graduating from high school. That might not even happen. She's certainly not going to college." I mean, those are the thoughts we have about our kids, right? Those are just typical ones. Those are not happening for her daughter. So all those hopes and dreams you had are gone. She thought she'd be having kind of a peer-to-peer relationship with the daughter by now. That's not going to happen for her, not right now. Sometimes, I would say this happened for me, I even had to grieve the loss of a sense of my own self. The person that I used to be had changed. I was kind of, I think, a naive person about how the world worked, because I'd done a good job of raising my son, and he was going to turn out fine, right? And so I was kind of a different person, too. I was a better person, but I thought, I didn't think that other person was that bad, you know? So you have a lot of grieving to do. And then after that, people tend to experience a lot of guilt. I release my burden of guilt by refusing to accept responsibility for my child's decisions. If you don't deal with that little issue of guilt, then you will be tempted to enable your child, and you won't be able to draw those boundaries, because somewhere in the back of your mind you're always thinking, maybe this was my fault. I had a woman in our group the other night. She talked for a while and she finally just said, "I know it's all my fault because I spoiled my children." Whoa, she's carrying a whole boatload of guilt. A lot of that guilt is false guilt. Would have made a difference if I had let my son spend another weekend up north with Grandma and Grandpa. That didn't change it, but I thought about that for a day or two, sure that was the issue. If you do have real guilt, then we tell people they need to deal with it. Maybe you did.